It's the voice of the one and only DJ Scream, letting you know that you are now in tune to the Casual Flex, where culture meets sports and casuals are welcome. Now here's your host, Phillip Dukes.
Yo, welcome to another edition of the Casual Flex. I'm your host, Phillip Dukes, aka Dukes D Scoop. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram at Dukes D Scoop, and make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. So, today's episode is brought to you by the Atlantic Clothing Company, Atlantik. Make sure that you go check them out. They got some really cool things that they're doing over there. They made this shirt. College Park made me like they made this shirt. They do a lot of things from the south side of Atlanta, the SWATs, you name it. So they got some really big things going on. So make sure you check those guys out. And if you would like your brand or anything that you have going on to be featured on my podcast, hit me up. I'm not hard to find. Send it to me. I'll put it on. But for the next few shows, I'll definitely be in the Atlantic Clothing Company brand for sure. Okay, let's get into it. Super Bowl. I predicted, yes, Phillip Dukes predicted the Super Bowl, saying that the Chiefs would be there against the Eagles. All right, I'm lying. I picked the Bengals. And if I was really, really close to being right, if it wasn't for a very, very questionable but valid unnecessary roughness call on the last drive, which put Kansas City in position to kick the game-winning field goal, the Bengals and Joe Cool would have been there, and it would still be Burrowhead Stadium. But that is not how it went. The Chiefs came out on top, and now you have both all-pro quarterbacks going up against each other in the Super Bowl in Jalen Hurts and Pat Mahomes. Probably the best matchup when you talk about player, star power. You got the Kelsey brothers going up against each other. You got Kansas City returning to the Super Bowl, and Pat Mahomes going through a gauntlet of up-and-coming quarterbacks that, every year there's another guy looking to knock him off. Burrow was able to do it last year, but this year he wasn't able to. And so now you got probably the brightest star quarterback in the NFC this year in Jalen Hurts versus Pat Mahomes. So I thought we would go down and just break down each position group, and I'll tell you who I think is the favorite. Quarterback. Just based on experience, you got to give the edge to the Chiefs. Pat Mahomes has already done it, already has the MVP. He's the one that ushered in the mega contracts this go around with the next wave of superstar quarterbacks. Pretty much the standard at the position. He throws the ball from incredible angles. He's mobile enough to make you respect it. He always beats you to the first down marker, even when he's hobbled as he was last week. He just came off of a pretty much an MJ flu game type performance. But on the other side, you got Jalen Hurts, probably who has the best run-pass combination of all the quarterbacks in the NFL. He excels throwing the deep ball. When he's running, he's able to keep his eyes downfield and make throws. And then sometimes he just makes some plays with his legs that you just can't teach. It's like having maybe like a Justin Fields with the accuracy of, I don't know, maybe Jalen Hurts. I mean, he's a super athlete, but he's really, really good with the ball in his hands. So I have to give the edge based on experience. It's really even. I would call it a push based on their skill sets, but I have to give the edge to the Chiefs based on experience. Let's go into the backfield. You got Jet McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco versus Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, and Kenneth Gainwell. I got to give the edge to the Eagles. Why? Because you've got guys who can all carry the load, and they all do different things. You got Gainwell, who's a spark plug, the jitterbug type running back, scat back, does a lot of things well. Really explosive in the open field. You got Miles Sanders, who's basically Saquon Barkley Jr., even back to their Penn State days. They do a lot of the things well. He can carry the ball 30 times if you needed him to. And then you got Boston Scott, who has his own blend of both backs. And the way they run their read option, with Jalen Hurts also being a part of that action, the Eagles can really run the ball and win the game. And that's something that I don't think that the Chiefs can do. Even if you look at the yards in the playoffs right now, and I would say that the game script probably has a lot to do with it. But the fact that the Eagles can lean on the run right now, I think they've got like 450 yards rushing in the playoffs, and maybe they've got less than 300 yards passing, but they still are winning in blowout fashion. That's something I don't think the Chiefs can do. Now, mind you, the Chiefs have really found a budding star in Isaiah Pacheco. He's really explosive with the ball, catches the ball really well. And Jared McKinnon has seen a career rejuvenation in Kansas City, and he's scoring touchdowns like it's nothing. And Pat Mahomes has really figured out a way to make both of those guys weapons. In particular, McKinnon out of the backfield catching the ball. But I just think when it comes down to pure rushing and pure talent in the backfield, you got to give that edge to the Eagles. So right now we're 1-1. Offensive line, I would call that a push, but the Eagles have 3 Pro Bowlers on offensive line, and they've shown that they can be road graders. They have a lot of talent up front. So I'm going to give the edge on the offensive line to the Eagles. Tight end, one word, Kelsey. Dallas Goedert is a heck of a tight end. Anybody else, he would be neck and neck. Even against Kittle, I really like how Goddard plays. He's the reason they were able to let go of a guy like Zach Ertz, who was an all-world type tight end at the time. But Kelsey is the standard, still the standard. Whether it's blocking, catching the ball, he's the far and away best tight end in the league, and on his way to Canton probably. So you got to give the edge at tight end to the Chiefs. Defensive line. Now, I cannot take anything away from Chris Jones and Frank Clark and the rookie they had. I forgot the rookie's name. Galifianakis something. I forgot his name, but can't take anything away from those guys. They really come to play every game. Chris Jones is a game wrecker. Frank Clark is probably the heart and soul of that defense, depending on who you ask. With all that being said, the Eagles have Brandon Graham, double-digit sacks. They've got Hassan Reddick, 19.5 sacks. They've got Ndamukong Suh. They've got Brandon Graham, double-digit sacks. Josh Sweat, double-digit sacks. And they got 40 sacks out of 4 guys at minimum. And not even to mention, you still got Fletcher Cox. And if they want to just get real freaky with it, they can go pull out this 6'6", 350-pound rookie that's a super athlete. So you got to give the edge to the Eagles on the defensive line, even though Kansas City probably has the best defensive line outside of the Eagles. At linebacker, I got to give the linebacker play to the Chiefs. You got Nick Bolton and Willie Gay, who out of Mississippi State, who was probably my favorite linebacker coming out of that draft, against 2 fairly unknown, unheralded guys for the Eagles who play really well behind that defensive line. But you have to give that edge to the Chiefs. Secondary, Eagles. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is going to have his hands full all day, but he's one of those type of guys that steps up to those type of challenges in a guy like Travis Kelce. Then on the outside, you've got the best cornerback duo in the NFL right now, and James Bradbury and Darius Slay, big play Slay, and they've been coming up big all season long. And playing behind that defensive line makes anybody a lot better, but these guys are already talented. A lot of people were wondering, like, how did Bradbury just end up on the Eagles anyway? But he got there, and he's been playing lights out. And so I think that the Eagles – so the way the game breaks down to me is who can do something that the other team can't? So both teams can rush the passer. Both teams can run the ball. Both teams can throw the ball out of the backfield. Both teams can stretch you vertically. But I don't think the one position group that I think sets this all apart is going to be the wide receiver group. And that's because the Eagles have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, who both run great routes. They both can get vertical. They both can stretch the field. They both can run the underneath routes. And then you still got that burner in the slot in Quez Watkins, who's probably the fastest, if not one of the fastest wide receivers. Well, he's up there with Tyreek Hill. He's that type of talent when it comes to running, just speed-wise, a true 4-3 guy. maybe sub 4-3, depending on who you ask. So I like Valdez-Scantling, what he brings to the table. Sky Moore, unheralded rookie, unproven, but when he's had his opportunities, he's played well. Kadarius Toney, really big pickup coming from the New York Giants. You still got a guy like Juju. But yeah, the reason that I think the Eagles will come out on top is their ability to send pressure and play man on top of it. See, the Eagles can get there with 4. They can send 5. They could even send 6 and still feel okay on the perimeter with what they can do, and they can cover well enough with the talent that they have in the secondary. And that's something that the Chiefs cannot do. The Chiefs can't afford to send 5 or 6 because, one, if it breaks down, Jalen Hurts will take off. Secondly, if he makes the right read and throws the ball one-on-one coverage, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, And I think that's what the game boils down to. So if I had to make an early prediction right now, I would say probably, let's go 31-28 Eagles over the Chiefs. That may change by next week. I don't know, depending on what happens. You know, weird stuff always happens around the Super Bowl, and I pray that we get the Super Bowl that everybody wants and deserves, and hopefully we get the best Super Bowl that we've ever seen. But yeah, right now I got to go with the Eagles over the Chiefs. Speaking of Super Bowl weirdness and other things that have been kind of weird, what's going on with the Lakers not getting calls? Is LeBron being a crybaby? And you know what? I've never seen LeBron really be so adamant about not getting calls. He's gotten calls his whole career, but I think part of that happens to be when you're 6'8", 250 or 60 pounds, freak athlete, freak athleticism, doing it like, you know, as 36, 37 years old, like you're 23. He's kind of branded himself to be so tough that some of those calls the ref just isn't going to give him. And sometimes the refs just miss calls. But I think the fact that the Lakers are struggling to get to 500, the injury, the continued injuries to Anthony Davis has LeBron at a point of frustration where he's feeling like, I already got to do it almost by myself. Why am I not getting these calls? And I don't think it's right, so to speak, but I do think that for him to be considered the greatest player of all time, you're not going to get every call. And when you don't get those calls, you still got to show up. And I think one of the larger problems is, why are the Lakers always in the position where one call decides the game? And if you don't get that call, you don't win the game. That's a very precarious situation to be in when you have the payroll of a team like the Lakers, when you have the responsibility to LA, when you have the hopes, when you have the dreams of the majority of basketball fans around the world are Lakers fans. Like, if you had to pick one team that has the most fans, it's probably the Lakers. And the great Lakers before LeBron, and people just have an expectation on LeBron James, and they expect him to be able to still come out on top. Last year, with the Lakers not making the playoffs, I mean, people are starting to be rabid about it. So I think it is a little weird, but at the end of the day, I think it's fair because, I mean, you're the greatest. So LeBron, if you hear me, I know it's tough. I know you're frustrated, but either the Lakers got to get you some help, or you're going to have to beat teams and the refs going forward, especially if you're to be considered the greatest of all time, which I think, you know, yeah, I don't think it gets much better than LeBron. You know, I come from the Jordan era, and I saw what Jordan did. Trust me, Jordan is okay. LeBron isn't retired, so his story is not finished. The book isn't complete, so it's going to be hard to compare. But once LeBron hangs it up, it's going to be really hard to not say that he's the greatest basketball player of all time. Now, was he the greatest champion of all time? Probably not. The best in the finals of all time? Probably not. Most winningest Nah, But as far as somebody, we've never seen anybody who can do everything that LeBron can. And just by definition, if you talk about the greatest basketball player, apples to being apples, if you take LeBron and put him on the 96 Bulls and you take 96 Jordan and put him on this year's version of the Lakers, who do you think would be better? Let's say that again. If you take 96 Jordan and put him on this year's Lakers, and you take this year's LeBron and put him on the 96 Bulls, what team do you think would be more successful? All right, that'll be our question of the week. Okay, moving forward. I think it's time we're going to jump over to baseball. I'm a Braves fan, huge Braves fan. And, it's we're starting to see maybe Ronald Acuna is becoming bigger than the game. I love Acuna. Ronnie is my favorite player in baseball. But for a team like the Braves with an old school manager, they won the World Series. I wouldn't say without him because he had a lot to do with keeping them in it, but they won the World Series without him playing. Last year, the power goes away. It seems like he's always involved in something. Would the Braves be better off without Acuna? Absolutely not. Zero. No way. They're not. He's too big of a talent. But I would like to. So you look at he's over there playing in the Winter League, and he gets into it with a guy. He can't go to the, he can't finish out the tournament because his family gets into it with another guy's family in the stands, and he's going, he's got the back and forth with Alex Gonzalez, former MLB shortstop, played a long time in the league, really well respected. And, I see Braves fans starting to kind of get tired of that act. And I wouldn't say I'm tired of the act because I don't think it's an act. What I would like to see is somebody come put their arm around him and tell him he doesn't have to respond to everything. It's somebody to come in and give him some game and be like, you know what, young blood, you're one of the best. All eyes are going to be on you at all times. I don't even want him to tone it down. What I want people to do, I want him to be able to play and conduct himself in a way where people can remember how transcendent of a player he is. And I think once, he gets back to his form where he's hitting bombs, I mean, he's been hitting leadoff forever, but he has all three-hole, tools. If he realizes his potential, I think all of that stuff goes out the window. I think you still get to see the flair for the game. I mean, I love to see him play, man. He's a joy to watch. But I just think that sometimes some of the stuff that happens or is talked about off field with him kind of overshadows who he is as a player. And just especially last year, he played really good baseball, but he wasn't hitting the deep ball. And I think that kind of was like, it's got people kind of acting like, is he still like that? I absolutely believe that Ronald Acuna will probably come out this year and be the NL MVP. As long as he stays healthy, I think he's going to come out as a man on a mission, and I think he's going to terrorize the NL East, especially the Marlins. I love it when he goes crazy on the Marlins. But yeah, man. So Ronnie, if you got any baseball OGs like a Manny Ramirez, somebody like that who knows how it is to kind of be misunderstood, I would love to see them mentor a guy like Ronnie Acuna so he can go ahead and ball out and show people who he really is. All right, so you've got, let's see what's up. Auburn basketball this past weekend. A really, really tough loss to a very scrappy team in West Virginia. West Virginia has the kid that goes off of 31, doesn't miss. He basically beat Auburn almost single-handedly. And you start to wonder is if Auburn has enough shooting to go deep into the NCAA tournament. I mean, when they lock in on defense, they defend very well. You've got 2 point guards who play really well. We don't see a lot of them together in Zep Jasper and Wendell Green, but they really are 2 talented guys. I mean, you got talented wings. You got a lot of talent, but you just don't have the outside shooting. And when it comes to somebody, you got a very vocal and energetic guy in KD Johnson, who's seen his minutes be reduced this year. But we saw some life out of him this past game, and Auburn doesn't stay in that game without him. So I think that Auburn has to find a way to get some shooting in order for them to be relevant in the tournament. But speaking of college basketball in the Southeast, especially in Georgia, I mean, is Kennesaw State the best basketball team, the best college basketball team in the state of Georgia? Right now, it looks like, yeah, Georgia Tech, Georgia, no, not even Georgia State. It's got to be Kennesaw State, and that's a sad time for the state of Georgia when you got so much talent in the Atlanta area. Every year you're seeing blue chip guys come out of Atlanta, and Bruce Pearl is like, hey, we'll take them. Hey, come on over here, 85 South, holla at me. That's what Bruce Pearl owns. So he's really built his program at Auburn out of 85 South. So it's a sad. Now, can Georgia Tech return, especially Georgia Tech? Growing up, Georgia Tech was like, if you grew up in Atlanta, you love Georgia Tech basketball or you love Georgia football. Right now, Georgia football is pretty much the premier. It ain't nothing else in Georgia. I mean, I remember even back when the Lady Dogs used to be busting, but at this point, it's really only Georgia football. But you would hope that the teams in Georgia could return to prominence and at least have one team with a chance of making the Sweet 16 in the round of 64. But right now, as long as brother Bruce Pearl is keeps getting all the talent out of Atlanta, a lot of the talent, you probably won't, until they can start keeping the kids home, you'll probably see the state of college basketball in the state of Georgia kind of look really similar to what it is now. Let's talk about Junior Day in Auburn. Auburn Junior Day. Depending on who you ask, over 150 kids. Some people said over 200. Last year, 13 players. Some people say 20. But for real, it was really about maybe 15 at the most. What has Hugh Freeze done differently that was done previously? One, early. He's getting out early, not waiting around. He knows he has to recruit. He's getting out in the state of Alabama. College coaches are loving Hugh Freeze, and he's starting at home. You got Aniston there. You got Baker there. You got Saraland. You got Pike Road. You got Booker T. Washington, the Tuskegee. You got so many places to be. Thompson. All of these places to be in Alabama that you got to focus on. And last year, you really didn't sign a whole lot from Alabama. I expect that to be totally different this year. And you're going to see Hugh Freeze battling Nick Saban for more highly ranked guys than in the past. And I think the real time that you see Hugh Freeze's real class is going to be 25 class. I think he'll do a great job in 24. I fully expect Auburn to have a top 15 class easily, but probably top 12. But I think when you see, and possibly top 10, but I think the 25 class in Auburn, you'll see Auburn return to like having that top 4 type class. And that's when you'll see the real dividends coming out of Auburn's investment in Hugh Freeze. So kudos to him. And, I always shout him out because, that was a tough job to come into, man. No disrespect to the last coaching staff. You had some guys on there who didn't really understand. There were some guys who did get it. I loved Brad Bedell. I thought he was a really good tight ends coach, even though he was kind of out of position, but he still did his thing. Steven Ruzick was really good. He's at Indiana as off-field staff, but he was an off-field guy. Really did a good job, but, things happen. And Christian Robinson did a good job. But things happen, and you see the guys who were, kind of doing a really good job landing on their feet. And but they made it hard on the next guy. Hugh Freeze was ready for the challenge, came in, hit the transfer portal, feet on the ground, marching, running, And now you see Auburn is probably one of the premier programs in the Southeast with an upward trajectory, and it's as evidenced by Junior Day. If you're an Auburn fan, you can't be any more excited. Clemson had a really good Junior Day. A lot of high-level talent. A lot of people. I mean, KJ Bolden is there. You got Walker White there, a huge Auburn target. They're still getting those high-level guys there, and they're going to be around. And if they get the quarterback play, Clemson will be right back where they've always been. But as you know, it's a quarterback-dependent game in college football. You got to have a trigger man in order to win. And even Stetson Bennett, who didn't have all the stars and all the hoopla, there was nobody more clutch, and you didn't see him make a lot of bad throws. So, yeah, I mean, right now, next year, college football seems to be wide open. If I had to take my pick next year, I don't see anybody knocking Georgia off. As long as they get some decent quarterback play, I don't see anybody knocking those guys off right now. Unless Brother Hugh comes with the phone. And, you got Georgia at home this year, so we'll see. But right now, early, I mean, it's going to be hard to beat Georgia, I think, depending on who ends up being a quarterback at Ohio State. I think that'll have a lot to do with it. But it's if there is a dark horse team, hey, I got to go with the Auburn Tigers because they got a lot in place. Hugh Freeze has an offense that translates well against the SEC. And he's got games against 3 of the powerhouses in college football in LSU, Alabama, and Georgia. 3 teams that all respectively could have been in the SEC championship last year. You win 2 out of those 3, and you're right back in the playoff picture. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, that's my time today, guys. Make sure you check me out on Twitter and Instagram at DukesTScoop. Got working on a couple of nice interviews for later on in the week. We'll get to being more consistent again. And hey, man, Dukes the Scoop, the casual flex. I'm out.